I told you this morning I had a fun job. I have to say, it's always a pleasure. And this session, we're going to approach CX and EX from a slightly different angle. And I think I mentioned to at least one of you gentlemen when we were preparing, I can't remember who it was, I had a friend of mine that went to business school with me who ended up being head of innovation at a big hospital group in the US. And I called him once and I said, you know, I work in customer feedback and voice of the customer. How do you use that in innovation? And he said, we don't. I was like, oh, come on, man. You've got to hear what your customers are saying. And he said, well, yes, of course. We need to listen to the customers when we're doing something new to know if it's working or not. But the actual innovation ideas, sometimes they come from the customer, but usually they come from the employees. They come from people in the organization, the talent we have. So we keep coming back to this theme of how CX and people and talent are connected. So hopefully we'll wrap up with that in the last panel. For this panel, we're going to hear about two of the kingdom's huge innovation projects. And I have to say, as I started poking around and reading about these projects, the first thing that stood out for me is how bold the changes were. How bold. They're really trying to do things that in some ways have either never been done before or really not in the same way. And, but that also means you have to take risks. So if any of you are sitting thinking about big changes your organization needs to make, hopefully you'll have some takeaways from today's conversation. I'm pleased to be joined by two gentlemen that are leading innovation efforts and customer experience in their organizations. We have Saiyfe Cosantini, who is Executive Director and Chief of Staff to the Deputy CEO at NEOM. And we have Faris Iskandrani, who is Digital Marketing Director at Red Sea Global. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So, Faris, maybe we start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about Red Sea Global and the types of innovations that you're introducing to tourism?
Well, excellent question. Excuse my voice. Yesterday we had the Saudi national team making it to the World Cup, so excuse my yelling. I would like to start with I love the way you phrased giga-project and the bold and disrupting the industries that comes with the vision, His Royal Highness vision. And this is exactly where we can start from. Each of the giga-project represent something that is totally different than the conventional way we think of things. If you look at NEOM, they're changing the way of industrial cities and technically everything. If you look at Giddiya, I saw their stand, they call it play living. So they want to change the way we think of entertainment and having fun. The same thing for Red Sea Global. This is what His Royal Highness vision was. How can we change the way people think of tourism and luxury tourism? So it's very critical to remember that architecture designs are great ideas, but the real impact is how you make people feel.
Right.
And this is exactly what happened when I showed you Shibara. If you remember, you saw Shibara Resort, this space orb. Maybe a lot of you have seen it.
Why don't you take a second for people who have not seen it?
Yeah.
Because I had not seen it. And yeah, I did have an emotional reaction when I saw it. What is Shibara?
So Shibara is one of the 16 resorts we have opened recently. We've opened 6 so far, and the rest are coming, inshallah, this year and next. And the designs, the way the resort is designed and executed in a way that's never done before. So the idea here was scrapping whatever you know of traditional resorts, the way people think of resorts and hotels, and build something new. And that's where Shibara. So it's basically, it's one of the island actually called Shibara itself. Fun fact, it's one US study saying it's the oldest island on Earth, by the way. They claim even that its life started there. And I will get to the sustainability and regenerative effort That's why we are different than any luxurious destination. But Shibata designs are extremely unique. It looks like a space orb. It's extremely beautiful. I invite you all to go and visit and see it. And when the designs happen, no one believed that this will come to true. But this is the idea, is not doing the conventional, go beyond.
So we're going to come back in a minute to what you're doing with customer experience. I just wanted to start by helping people in the audience imagine some of the big changes that are happening. Saiyfe, can you tell us a little bit about the challenge that you have? I mean, they're making big innovations in tourism. Your innovations touch many sectors.
Yes, so first of all, thank you, John, and thank you, Numetrics, for organizing today's event and inviting me to share some insight about the CX program in NEOM. And I think maybe if I just set the scene, most of the time when you think about CX program, in a normal organization, in normal corporate, you know, you always identify your clients, B2C, B2B, and so on, and then you build the full program around it. When it comes to NEOM, it's, I would say, slightly different, even more than that, because NEOM is not only a company. NEOM is it's a region. It's the size of Belgium. NEOM has sub-regions, have cities. NEOM has 15 sectors, 15 economic engines that are here to create jobs, contribute to the GDP of the country. NEOM has obviously different businesses, different entities. And when you start to think about who are your ultimate customers, then you have residents, you have tourists, you have investors, you have suppliers, you have B2C, B2B, you have employees, you have internal customers. And this is where the challenge is. So obviously, we can't cover all of them at the same time. And we start to identify and prioritize what are the key customers across different ecosystems that we define. And for each ecosystem, especially for the one what we call the community, the residents that are currently living in NEOM, and obviously tomorrow will live across the different regions and cities, how you can start to pilot things that no one else did before. And that's what the excitement is in NEOM, because we don't have legacy. We start from scratch. And thanks to this, you can start to pilot, to innovate. And that's the beauty of NEOM. So yes, we have some conventional approach that you can see on any other companies. So we have an employee customer experience, we have an internal customer experience, we have already some B2B, B2C clients, but that's, let's say, a normal set of company. We go beyond the company boundaries, and you start to think about residents. So residents is about shopping experience, hospital, clinic, schools, transportation, food, accommodation. You start about investors, tenants in Hexagon, our port. You have suppliers. So all of that in one place. So it's like you are covering a company, but also a city, a region, all of that in one single place. So that's the beauty, in a way, around the customer experience program that we have in NEOM.
So we'll come back to this, but you're planning to understand the experience for all of these varied sectors and organize the data in a way that's useful.
Yes.
In a platform like Medallia.
That's obviously the ambition, and Faris mentioned the overall ambition that the giga-projects have, and obviously the country at the end of the day has, and that ambition is obviously it's linked to how you orchestrate the entire program with all the different key pillars that you need to have, and one of them is data. Data is key. Without data, with not understanding how you set up your data, it's like a cube. You know I think in French you call it Rubik's cube. You know the cube and we play with.
Rubik's cube.
Exactly.
Someone else used that example this morning too.
Oh, okay. So I was not there, but it's exactly the same thing. So one set of data. Let's take me as a Saiyfe. I am an employee of NEOM. I am a colleague in NEOM. I am a resident in NEOM. I am a tourist in NEOM. So how can I make sure that when I have all different interactions across the different ecosystems, that I know that it's safe, but safe as I said, employee, as a resident, as a tourist, and so on. So you do that for one, but you do that for 1,000, 5,000, and then hopefully you can do for 100,000 and one day for millions.
I mean, this idea of thinking about your data architecture and the ability to say, this is one human being who interacts with us in many different ways. It exists in most organizations, but you guys are having to deal with it on such a big scale. So it's a very interesting challenge to tackle.
And for us, it's happening. So literally today, we have so we have different communities living in NEOM. We have a camp called NC1, NEOM Community 1, where we have maybe less than 5,000 people, so employees, dependent, kids, and it's like a small town, if you want. There's everything there. Schools, as I said, shops, accommodation, entertainment. We have a football club, a NEOM Sports Club. So, and again, if I'm living there, I'm as a resident, but at the same time as an employee, as a colleague, and so on. So that's how you start building all the data set. And if you make it right at the beginning, hopefully, then you can expand. And if you can do it for 5,000, as I said, you can expand it to...
So you're using that group to sort of test out the way you're getting feedback, et cetera?
Exactly. And that's, let's say, the beauty, again, of NEOM is we can test and we can pilot.
Yep.
And without testing, without piloting, then it's very hard to do it on a bigger scale.
So let me come back to you, Faris, for a second. You actually, the first resorts started opening more than a year ago, right? So you had feedback in the Medallia system at the beginning?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and it's connecting to what they're saying. When we started in late 2017, initially it was the Red Sea Development Company. Our main mandate was to develop the destination, and then the resorts will come, they operate it, and that's it. And then we'll continue to develop multiple luxurious destinations. What we found out is that once we started to develop the Red Sea, and the way we do it, again, with the mindset of regenerative tourism and sustainability, where it's not enough to be sustainable, but you actually have to come to do more. And when we did this, we noticed that, okay, so we're not going to be connected to the grid of Saudi Arabia of electricity, so everything there is solar panel. So we had to create a solar panel company. And then we looked at the resorts. Some of the resorts, like Shibara and Desert Rock, so we have the Marriott Group, we have the IHG, we have the Four Seasons, we have every single luxurious. But some of them we wanted to operate our own. We created a hospitality company. And then when we built, we noticed that we need a lot of scientists, a lot of researcher. So instead of going to consultancy, we created a consultancy company. And then we moved on to the service provider. So we needed a seaplane. There is not even a seaplane certificate by GACA in Saudi. So we created that. We supported the Saudi government into initiating that training to train our own employee and then launch Fly Red Sea. It's a live seaplane company currently operating and servicing. We have over 21 subsidiaries, and we ourselves is a portfolio under BIF. We have over 10,000 employees. So when we started, as you mentioned, the mind shifted from a developer to an operator. And this is very challenging, especially if you're doing it completely new, as NEOM has mentioned. So when we did this, we did it the conventional way. We did the survey. Obviously, we have third parties that for data privacy, we have to do our own thing. But then we noticed that, okay, so the first journey we did was, we call it, I would say, operational journey on ground. So the first step is the airport. We have our own airport. It's the only airport in Saudi owned by a private entity, RSI, Red Sea International Airport. And then we own the mobility, and then from the mobility, the Fly Red Sea or the e-vehicle or the yachts, people go to the resorts. We own some of the resorts, most of the resorts we don't own. And then there's the experiences within the resort, the diving, the zip lining, the several ones. They have 3 companies, Wama, Galaxy, and Akun. They're all in different adventure fields. We own these. So what we noticed is that in the first phase, we own like 70% of the journey, and we control the rest by mandating with this resort. So instead of just collecting the feedback and the customer experience, and we just deliver these beautiful experiences and deliverable beautiful resorts, we felt we can do more. And this is where last year, mandated by our CEO, we decided, we noticed the struggle for the guests that they book through the third party, but they don't know where is the Red Sea. They don't know how to get there. We rely a lot on Marriott. We rely a lot on Six Senses resorts. We rely a lot on Intercontinental to do that job. But then we noticed that here is an opportunity.
So this was the pain point. There were some pain points around
Yes.
just getting the information.
Yes. We've done so much, but for some reason, like even with the push marketing, we felt like we could do more to reach to the audience. So why not cut the middleman and we ourselves reach out to every single one? So last year, I remember end of last year, we decided to partner with one of the biggest companies in digital, including Neometrics. We have Globant as one of the master developer, and we decided to build something called Connected Visitor Program, CVB. It's a big project in our company, and we are extremely proud to launch it, inshallah, end of this month, early November. So CVB is one-stop digital solution connecting every single guest and residents. We have residents as well. People come by in the Red Sea, and a lot of people don't know it as well. We will connect every single resident and visitor through this website, app, however omni-channel you want to join into, where you can book the resorts, book multi-resort. This is the first app that does that. So you can book 1 day at Shibara, 1 day at Six Senses, 2 days at St. Regis. Facilitate the transportation within the same journey, and then pick the experiences, all of that before you check out. So one stop, you book all of the itinerary, and then you check out. When we started this, honestly, John, everyone was saying, okay, why don't you just do a conventional booking engine? But then this is, again, we have beautiful destination, something unseen. Why can't we follow it with the digital app to do so?
Well, what I liked about it is that you're also trying to innovate in the way the person is designing their own experience.
Absolutely.
Like when you told me about it, what went through my head was, oh, I'm becoming my own travel agent.
Absolutely.
I'm doing everything, but I'm doing it in one place, which normally when I book travel, I have to go to many different places and put the pieces together myself. So, yeah, so in a way, this digital becomes important here to the experience. And you also have a mobile app that you're building for NEOM, is that correct?
Yeah, so it's already there. It's a community app. So again, as I mentioned, so NEOM, it's covering so different ecosystems. One of them is what we call in NEOM, it's our community ecosystem, which cover all the residents that are currently living in NEOM, and obviously tomorrow more and more residents will come and live there. And we have a community app where we're trying to capture all the different key interactions that a resident may have within a community. So again, restaurants. You go to restaurants, you pay that community app, you can pay with that app. You can have accommodation, laundry, transportation, book a taxi or whatever. Travel, because also we have an airport in NEOM and you can book your travel. You can also book clinic appointments, hospital, and all of that. So the idea is, if you start to centralize most of the key interactions within one single app, then it's easier, obviously, to understand all the different touching points that you may have within that community, and then start to obviously capture information about experience, survey, and so on. And that's what we are trying to do. And again, it's challenging because it means that you really need to understand what are all the very important interactions that you need to capture. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that everything has to be within the app. You can always enrich the data that we have in the app with other sub-apps or other key elements or key systems that exist, and then you push this data within one data platform where you can see, okay, for example, me as Saiyfe, again, I'm using that app, but maybe in that app I don't have my nationality, for example. But not my nationality can be in another system. So I can push the data in that data platform, and then This is where you can start to build persona. You can start to, because one of the key things also that we are learning is the survey fatigue. You can't obviously send survey every time you have interactions. If I go to a restaurant, I receive a survey. If I do my accommodation, I receive a survey. If I book my ticket, and so on. You can't do that, so it's impossible. But at the same time, within NEOM, every single business line or every single sector, they need to have that feedback to improve their experience. So let's take mobility. Mobility, they want to know if the taxis or the transportation, the buses and all of that is working well. We have airport. We have operations on accommodation and food. You have health and well-being for the hospital. So everyone needs to have this feedback, but at the same time, you need to make sure that you don't have a survey fatigue. Yep. So how can we start to have this kind of persona and say, if I am me, Saiyfe, French, 40 plus, married, kids, maybe there are people like me within the community, and rather than having one Saiyfe, you may have 5 Saiyfe, and then for each of them, you provide different type of surveys, and then you cover the entire touching points, but one for one persona. And that's also what we are trying to do. And again, it's easier to say it now. It requires, obviously, a strong data element, platform, architecture, new metrics, obviously, that are helping us on that journey. But that's what we want to do. This is what we're trying to pilot. And again, and I'm repeating myself as an old guy, but the beauty is we are doing from scratch. So literally, like, we can do almost whatever we want. And we test and pilot. If it works, done, we continue. If it doesn't work, we're trying to understand, and we fix it, and we move forward. Yeah. And that's what the exciting part of being part of NEOM is. I don't think there's any... imagine tomorrow a city like Riyadh understand every single interactions that a resident may have within the city. I go to the shop, I go to a restaurant, I go to a cinema, I'll go to the airport, I'm using a taxi, I'm using Uber, etc. All of that in one data platform. So that's the ambition. And again, we are quite humble, so we do it on small scale, but the idea is obviously to expand, and if it works for 5,000, as I said, it should work for 10, and then for 100, and one day for 1 million.
Well, just as one of the big takeaways for me, speaking with both of you, especially now, because I'm understanding the complexity even more, there is something very unique about thinking about building an app to do it all, because it forces you to really understand what are the jobs, what are the tasks that your customer needs to get done, and how could I stitch all of that together. When you can make that experience easy and seamless for the customer through a digital app, it also has advantages in the background, because in the background, it means you have your data connected. And maybe this is one thing I will just leave people with, because I know we need to wrap up. I worked at Medallia for 11 years. When I joined, there were about 250 employees. I cannot tell you the number of implementations we did where one of the biggest pieces of value of Medallia was to take data in many, many different systems and stitch it all together to get one view of what was going on. So very often we would come in and implement a layer that sat on top of lots of different legacy systems, and all of those systems had little bits and pieces of what was going on with the customer. And we still do that. I'm working with a client in France now who has the same challenge, right? They have a history. You guys are building it from scratch, and you're thinking about it, I think, in the right way. So I look forward to hearing more about how your solutions evolve, how your experiences evolve over time. And thank you so much for sharing those details with us today.
Thank you.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you, guys.
Big hand for our panelists.